Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
It is a historic moment that so many people chose Ram Katha over shopping. This day will go in history in golden words. And I must congratulate all of you all. You all have won a great battle. But I guess this is the power of Ram Katha. Yes. Pardon? The Guinness Book of Records, yes. So today morning, we were discussing a very intense and a very intriguing discussion between Kaikeyi and Manthara. Kalidas, in his very unique style of poetry, he summarizes this entire episode with one analogy. He says, just like when rainwater enters into a snake hole, you see snake holes? And when it rains, when rainwater enters into a snake hole, the moment water enters into the hole, snakes rush out they can't stay in a wet hole, basically. They just rush out. And they are so angry and agitated that they suddenly have to get out of their house, that whoever is standing next to the hole, they go and bite that fellow. So Kalidas gives this analogy, and he says, Manthara's words were like rainwater, and they entered into the ears of Kaikeyi, which were like snake holes. And from when they entered, the words entered into her ears, two snakes came out of her mouth, the two boons, and they struck Dasharath and killed him. What an analogy, isn't it? So, Dasharath now is very worried about what is going to happen tonight. He's not getting sleep. Obviously, because he knows that tonight is a very decisive night. And he is not getting sleep. Whenever he is in anxiety, whenever Dasharath is in anxiety, he is in stress, he is under tremendous pressure, not knowing what to do. That's the time Dasharath Maharaj goes to the palace of Kaikeyi to find solace, to find warmth, to find hope. So Dasharath rushed out of his palace like a thirsty man running towards a well. He felt he was running towards an ocean, not just a well. The interesting thing over here is that when you go to drink water from a well, your thirst gets quenched. But when you drink water from an ocean, no matter how much you drink, your thirst will never get quenched. So, Dasharath, he was running towards Kaikeyi with a lot of expectations. But when he reached over there, the palace of Kaikeyi, he found the entire palace to be pitch dark. Imagine, the whole of Ayodhya, there's a celebration going on. There are lights all over Ayodhya. And there is festivals, decoration, really so much opulence all over Ayodhya. But in Ayodhya, the palace of the queen is dark. Pitch dark. So now, Dasharath goes in and he asks someone, what is happening? Why is the palace dark? And when Dasharath asks, one maid servant there, she tells him that the queen has gone into the sulking chamber. Immediately Dasharath understands what is the meaning of going into sulking chamber. He knows what to expect, obviously, right? She's not going to have a party over there in the sulking chamber, She's not going to, be dancing and singing in the sulking. It's all gone for a reason, isn't it? So Dasharath walked into the sulking chamber and he saw a scene that shocked him. He saw that Kaikeyi was lying across the floor, on the floor, and her ornaments were thrown all over the room. Her amulets, her anklets were just thrown here and there. And some of the ornaments were thrown so hard that they had lost their shape completely. And the golden belt of Kaikeyi, the gold filaments and particles were thrown all over the floor. And Kaikeyi was spread across the floor like a distorted golden wire, or just like a creeper that is separated from its tree. And Kaikeyi, her hair was disheveled completely. Her clothes were just strewn here and there and torn in many places. The flowers from her hair were ripped apart in anger and thrown here and there. And the mark of vermilion on her forehead were rubbed off. So she was lying on the floor like that, and Dasharath couldn't understand why she is in so much agony on the floor. And so here, Valmiki makes a very interesting comparison between Dasharath and Kaikeyi. Valmiki is expert in making comparisons, And at the right points in the Ramayana, he makes absolutely amazing comparisons. So he's comparing Dasharath with Kaikeyi. He says, at this point in time, Dasharath and Kaikeyi have nothing in common. Dasharath, he was very old, and comparatively Kaikeyi was very young. Dasharath, at this point in time, he was sinless. And at this point in time, Kaikeyi was filled with wickedness. Dasharath was like an elephant, and Kaikeyi was a delicate deer. So Dasharath was like an elephant, and Kaikeyi was like a deer. So now Dasharath, he bent down, trying to touch her, try to help her, try to console her. As soon as he tried to touch Kaikeyi, she hit him hard with the back of her hand. And the hit was so hard that suddenly Dasharath went back. He was shocked. He couldn't believe his wife just hit him like that. And Dasharath, at this point in time, he was disturbed that why is Kaikeyi behaving like this? So Dasharath began to ask her questions. He asked her, has anyone disrespected you that has caused you so much of misery? Are you sick? If you're sick, just tell me. I'll call the best physicians to help you deal with your miseries. And he said, all my people and me are your servants. You have more authority over me and my kingdom than I have over my kingdom. Dasharath is telling all this, And he says, your wish is my command. Demand whatever you want and I will give it to you. And he says, even the smallest desire that you have for me is very precious. For me is very precious. And he says, allow me the opportunity to make you happy. And look at the things that Dasharath is telling her, okay? He's telling her, do you want me to do anyone a favor? Do you want me to pick up a fight with someone? He's saying, I can give mercy even to the most undeserving person just for you. And I can come down heavily on someone who is genuine and who has not done any mistake, just for you. And then he says, for you, O Kaikeyi, I am willing to kill an innocent person. And for you, I am ready to release a prisoner who is on the death row. That means he's just going to be executed. And he says, I can make a poor man rich if you want. I can make a rich man poor if you want. He says, just tell me what you want. I might be the Lord of the world, but you are the mistress of my world. All this is fine when it is told in poetry. But when a king really wants to do this, it's not at all fine, isn't it? Look at the things that Dasharath is talking about. This is serious stuff, isn't it? And over here, Valmiki, he makes a very interesting point. And Valmiki is just so amazing. At this point, Valmiki calls Dasharath by two names. He calls Dasharath Jagatpati. That means he's the Lord of the world. And he calls Dasharath as Mahayasha. That means why is Valmiki using these two words to describe Dasharath at this point in time? Mahayasha means someone with great fame. Jagatpati means the one who is the Lord of the world. By using these two words to describe Dasharath at this point of time, Valmiki is actually making fun of Dasharath. He's telling the world, look at what Jagatpati and Mahayasha is doing. Is this what Jagatpati and Mahayasha should be doing? Is this the way someone who is so great and such a powerful person should be behaving? So Valmiki is kind of, it's a very sarcastic way of calling it, When you're doing the worst thing in your life, if somebody calls you, you're such a great person, what does it mean? It actually doesn't mean something great. It actually is a sarcastic way of saying you're stupid. The life of a leader is centered around accountability and not around what he wants to do personally, right? So here, Dasharath Maharaj is not able to understand that Kaikeyi is completely controlled him. So, as soon as Dasharath says all this, suddenly Kaikeyi gets up. As if she just got a current, shock. She just gets up suddenly, And she raises her hands in the air. And this whole thing is a complete drama, Look at this. She's like a pakka drama queen, And she knows exactly how to deal with things. So she says, she gets up and with a loud voice, she raises her hand to the ceiling and she starts saying, today, the Lord of Ayodhya, Dasharath Maharaj, has made a promise. And she says, I invoke all the celestials to come down and bear witness to the promise of Dasharath, And she says, I invoke the celestials to bear witness. O Agni, the god of fire, come along with the 33 celestials. O sun god, O moon god, O god of the skies, O god of the houses, I invoke all of you to come here and bear witness to Dasharath's promise. And she says, I invoke the earth personified. I call the Gandharvas, I call the Apsaras, I call the Kinnaras, I call the demons, I call the spirits, I call all the other personalities wandering around. Come here and bear a witness to the promise my husband has made. Now Dasharath is wondering, what is happening here? It is like a husband-wife conversation and she is called the whole world over there, Imagine, there's like two people talking to each other in the privacy of their house and suddenly you start calling the whole world, come and bear witness. What sense does it make? Dasharath was totally shocked. And Kaikeyi says, I want you to give me the two boons you had promised me long back. Dasharath, it's been decades, literally centuries back this had happened, And Dasharath, obviously, he knows these two boons, right? In the back of his mind, these two boons have been harassing him also, So he says, ask for anything you want. And Kaikeyi, she says, with the first boon, I claim the throne of Ayodhya for my son Bharat. And with the second boon, I want Ram to be exiled to the forest of Dandakaranya for 14 years, where he will live the life of an ascetic, wearing tree bark and deer skin, and will have matted hair. She said, this is what I want. The two vows that came out from the Kaikeyi's mouth struck him like the two daggers. Dasharath collapsed. He just couldn't believe only what he heard. And then Kaikeyi, just to make it even more emphatic, she says, she speaks about the importance of telling truth. She says how important it is to tell the truth. And she says that once somebody has made a promise, one should never abandon one's promise. It's like, she's already struck two daggers. Now by saying this, she's like pushing those daggers into his back. Dasharath, he collapsed. He was on the floor of the sulking chamber, completely flat. And Kaikeyi was standing. In 10 minutes, the scene changed completely. 10 minutes before, Dasharath was standing and Kaikeyi was on the floor. In 10 minutes, Kaikeyi is standing and Dasharath is on the floor. Very interesting, right? Role reversal, this is called. Let us just try to understand what just happened over here. See, the environment is very, very important for things to happen. In the two biggest epics in the world, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, in both these epics, one decision was taken in the wrong environment. And that one decision taken in the wrong environment cost the entire story of the Ramayana is centered around this one decision. And the entire story of the Mahabharata is centered around one decision that Bhishma took in front of Satyavati's father. And both of them were taken in the wrong environment. When I say wrong environment, what does it mean? See, the environment makes a big difference, right? When we make decisions in life. If we don't have the right environment, even the best of decisions can be made wrong. Kaikeyi created an environment where Dasharath would make wrong decisions. That's why the sulking chamber was chosen as a place. That's why she created a drama. She created so much of, she kind of really churned Dasharath's heart. And she made his heart weak enough. And then at the right point, she kind of threw the two things. And in the Mahabharata, same thing happened. Satyavati, Shantanu Maharaj had fallen in love with Satyavati. And Satyavati's father had a condition that her son only will be the next king. Shantanu just walked away. He said, I can't do this. This is injustice to my son. Bhishma, without asking anybody, he went over there. And in that environment, the father and daughter were putting so much pressure on Bhishma. And in that environment, in that one moment, in that particular situation, Bhishma took that vow. And that one vow of Bhishma, the entire Mahabharata rotates around that vow only. Isn't it? If he didn't take the vow, the Mahabharata would have been different. And Bhishma wouldn't have taken the vow if Satyavati and her father didn't create that environment. Right? It's very interesting that whenever you look at stories like this, there are two different ways of looking at the stories. One is an external level and one is an internal level. On the external level, the story is very obvious and it is very much in front of us. But on an internal level, something else is happening. And let me explain to you the story on an internal level now. There are two types of diseases in this world. There are physical diseases and there are mental diseases. Physical diseases, some of them spread very fast. and some of them don't spread at all. If somebody has malaria and you sit next to that fellow, will you get malaria? Obviously you won't. But if somebody has corona and you sit next to that fellow, you still may not get, because you don't know what corona is. Anyway, that's a joke. So, physical diseases, some of them spread and some of them don't. But mental diseases, all of them spread very fast. You sit next to a person who is always talking bad about others. In 5-10 minutes, you will also start talking. Isn't it? If you sit next to a person who is very critical, you will also become very critical. You sit next to a person who is very negative, you will also become very negative. You sit next to a person who is very envious, you will also become very envious. This is the nature of mental diseases. Mental diseases spread very fast. And therefore, you should be careful whom you associate with and whom you don't. In this story, we find originally in Ayodhya, only one person had a mental disease, and that was Manthara. Rest everybody was fine. Kaikeyi associated with Manthara for a little while, and then she also got the mental disease. And what is the proof that she got the mental disease? She went into the sulking chamber. The fact that she went into the sulking chamber means she was mentally diseased, right? And Dasharath Maharaj, he was fine. But when he reached over there, and he came to know that she has entered into the sulking chamber, ideally he should not have gone in. Why? Already one person is very sick. And Dasharath is very weak over here, immunity down. And if he goes inside, good chance he will also get infected. But Dasharath was like an overconfident counselor. Either I'll go and help him. First of all, you should know your capacity to help. If you don't have the capacity to help, don't help. Correct? Ideally, he should have gone and got the doctor. Who is the doctor over here? Vashishta, the guru. If Vashishta had come in and the discussion had happened in front of Vashishta, the discussion would be different. Dasharath himself went in with great confidence. And the two, what he was speaking with confidence, see, in the beginning? And in 10 minutes of him being there, he got infected. And that's why he was lying on the floor. Now the interesting thing is, if one person in the family gets infected by a disease, the whole family gets, isn't it? But if a leader gets infected with the disease, the entire country gets affected. By next day morning, the whole of Ayodhya was crying. Every single person in Ayodhya was affected because the leader got affected, isn't it? That is the power of mental diseases. And when the whole country got affected, Vashishta, he was the only person who was alright. And typically when the entire country gets affected by mental disease, two people walk out of the country. Sita and Ram. God and peace walk out of their country. Sita Ram walked away. And an entire country was filled with chaos. And only one person was alright, that was Vashishta. Vashishta said, I can't treat so many people. I need help. And therefore he called Bharat from outside. Because Bharat was not inside Ayodhya. So he was not affected by the mental disease. He called Bharat from outside, knowing very well that Bharat is the only person who can help him help so many people come out of the disease. And when Bharat came and he saw the condition of thousands of people of Ayodhya, he was honest, unlike Dasharath. He said, I can't help so many people. The only thing I can do is take all of them to Ram. And once they see Ram, then they will get cured of all the mental disease. This is what a true preacher does. A good preacher is not someone who says, I can solve your problem. A good preacher is someone who says, I can't solve your problem, but I can connect you to Ram. And your connection with Ram, you will be able to handle your problem better. Isn't it? Who can solve anybody's problem? Nobody can solve their own problem. What to speak of solving other people's problems, isn't it? At best, we can help people connect with God. And that is the best solution to any problem in life. You can't do better than this, isn't it? That's essentially the whole Ayodhya Kanda in brief, basically. And that's what we're going to see over the next 4 5 days. So, anyway, Dasharath Maharaj was on the floor now, completely weak and very, very unconscious. He was like a ferocious lion that is stunned and he is lying lifeless. Or he was like a huge elephant that has been struck on its leg by a snake. Dasharath was on the cold floor. His energy and his strength were, going out of him. And he was crying out. He was like wailing, literally wailing. Just like if a prey is cornered by a lion or a tiger, and just before it dies, it utters a last cry, right? Like that, Dasharath was uttering sounds, basically. And his breath was becoming heavy, and his tongue was dried up, and his eyes were like the setting sun. Dasharath, he asks Kaikeyi, do you want to annihilate the Ikshvaku race? He says, have I married a serpent? And he says, a person like you are a deadly person with a honey-coated skin. And then he says, I think someone else is controlling you. And at some point, Dasharath kind of understood, And he says that, or you are possessed by some evil spirit. Dasharath says like that. Now Kaikeyi, she says, I am not controlled by anyone, nor am I haunted by any evil spirit. The only thing that is haunting me right now is a question. And the question is my husband, the king of Ayodhya, the protector of Dharma, is he a liar? That's the only question that is haunting me at this point. So Dasharath says, at least take back one of your two wishes. I have no problem with Bharat becoming the king. He is exalted, he is very good. But why are you adamant on sending Ram to the forest? And he says, I have heard you myself claiming Ram is better than Bharat so many times. So Dasharath says, how can you ignore the fact that Ram has treated you as his mother and he serves you more than he serves Kaushalya? And he says, in fact, he takes care of you so much more than your own son Bharat takes care of you. He says, Ram is a gem. He has won the heart of every citizen of Ayodhya. Even the innocent children of Ayodhya will make fun of you if they hear you speaking all this. And Dasharath says, I cannot exist without Ram. No good wife will scheme for the death of her husband. And he says, if I ask Ram to give the kingdom, he will happily give it to Bharat. He will happily give it to Bharat. So Dasharath is like, trying his best to at least bargain, He knows that Kaikeyi is adamant. He knows that she is difficult. But he's at least trying to bargain. Why send Ram away? So Dasharath is lying on the floor, helpless. And then he does something really amazing. He takes his head and puts it at the feet of Kaikeyi. He puts his head at the feet of Kaikeyi. And he really is holding the feet of Kaikeyi. And he's trying to beg her. And you know what she does? She walks away. She pulls her leg, walks away, without even saying anything. And then from far away she says, a person who says something and does something else lacks integrity. And then Kaikeyi speaks philosophy. She says, what will you tell people? Will you tell them that your wife saved your life and despite of you giving boons to her, you're not able to fulfill her desires? And will you tell the world that you are living off my mercy? That you're not able to repay my debt? And then she talks about Shibi, the ancestor of Dasharatha Maharaj. She says, look at Shibi, your ancestor. Shibi Maharaj is such a great person. He gave one vow to that pigeon that I will save your life. And to protect the pigeon, he gave away his own skin, his own thigh. He cut off and gave. You are the descendant of such an ancestor. What I am not asking you to give your thighs or your skin or anything like that. I am not asking you for your life also. I am only asking you for the kingdom. Actually, by asking Ram to be sent away, the Kaikeyi was in fact asking for both. He was asking for Dasharath's flesh also and Dasharath's life also. And Dasharath, he loved Ram so much that tearing Ram away from him is like tearing his flesh from him. And he says, the eyes that he has, and Kaikeyi gives one more story. She says there was a king named Alarka. So this king Alarka, he granted a boon to a blind Brahmana who wanted his eyes. This blind Brahmana asked the king Alarka, I want your eyes. And the king sacrificed his own eyes to fulfill the promise that he had given to this Brahmana. And he helped restore the eyes of this particular Brahmana. So Kaikeyi is telling, I am not asking for your flesh, nor am I asking for your eyes. The fact is that when Ram goes away, for Dasharath his eyes also have gone. Because the only reason his eyes are there is to see Ram. Kaikeyi goes on emphasizing the Vedas glorify truth as the highest and the most important thing to be followed. In fact, she says the Vedas declare truth to be Pranava, Omkar itself. And she says one should adhere to the truth without thinking of consequences. Truth should always be followed in spite of calamities and difficulties. And then she says, now I make a promise. Kaikeyi is telling, if Ram is coronated and not exiled, I will consume poison and die. And she says, better to embrace death than be forced to witness my rival Kaushalya being honored. If you actually study everything Kaikeyi spoke, philosophically, everything is correct. She speaks about truth. She speaks about how truth is dharma, truth is omkar. She speaks about how truth is the most important thing. The examples of Shibi, the example of Alarka, all perfect. But only problem is told in the wrong situation. The philosophy is amazing. Philosophy can actually empower a person or destroy a person. There are more people who have been hurt by people speaking philosophy than people not speaking philosophy. I'm sure all of you all have experiences of people sitting on the Vyasasana and speaking philosophy. And that philosophy can hurt you. Correct or no? I'm sure everybody has experienced that, right? And especially if you have people who don't understand how to use philosophy in the right context, they can destroy people's faith. So many people, without right understanding of philosophy, they start counseling people. And oh my God, how many people have ran away from ISKCON because of this? How many people have left spirituality because of this kind of philosophy being misused? Right? Simple thing. Philosophically, we can talk about so many aspects. Like, for example, there was a young boy who became a devotee in one of our college programs and all. He went home very inspired. He became a devotee in his hostel, and he became fully convinced about Krishna consciousness and went home for the first time. And his parents, they don't understand this whole thing. He's having a conversation with his parents after a lot of philosophical understanding. His parents are trying to talk to him and love him and all that. He's telling them which parents you are, which lifetime. I had so many parents in the past, I am going to have so many parents in the future. You are one set of my parents. And the parents are bewildered. Where did this guy come from, From childhood, we have been raising this fellow. And we have been feeding him, we have been clothing him and all that. This guy coming and giving philosophy to us, And he's trying to tell them how, and next 4 days, making a mess at home. He's telling, y'all are non-devotees. I don't associate with y'all. I will go back to the temple only. I don't associate with non-devotees because I've been told that we should not associate with non-devotees. If you want me to associate with you, start chanting today only. These parents are going mad. They're completely going mad because they're not able to understand why their son is talking like that to them. And then he says, I have found my real father. Prabhupada is my real father. I don't believe in material relationships anymore. Stupid fellow. Just started understanding Krishna consciousness, not even understood everything. Without understanding the context, he's speaking philosophy. Right? You think that philosophy is pleasing to his parents? You think that philosophy will please anyone in the world? He's philosophically right. And he is absolutely correct as far as the philosophy is concerned. But the context in which he's speaking is absolutely wrong. And it's very painful. That's exactly what is happening here. Kaikeyi is right in her philosophy. But when philosophy is spoken in the wrong person, in the wrong context, in the wrong way, it can destroy. So here, Dasharath is trying to discuss with her in spite of the situation in which he is. He says, Bharat is as virtuous as Ram. I am sure he will never accept this kingdom. And if he does, I disown him. And he says, I will not allow him to do my final rites also. Dasharath is telling like this to Kaikeyi. And he says, what kind of a wife you are? You have desires that are harmful to your husband. And, Dasharath is speaking with so much anger at Kaikeyi, and suddenly he falls at her feet. And he says, I beg you, please don't ruin everything. I've created so painstakingly. I'm your husband. I'm an old man. I'm a king. And he says, I'm still falling at your feet and humbly begging you, please change your mind. So, Kaikeyi is not even looking at him. Kaikeyi is not even bothered about trying to pacify him or trying to say anything good to him. So this is the nature of anger. And this is the nature of selfishness. Anger is a result of some unmet need. Whenever you have some need of yours that is not met, you get angry. And Dasharath here, what was his need? He came to Kaikeyi because he needed some love and hope. But what was Kaikeyi's need? Kaikeyi's need was she wanted the kingdom. She wanted security for herself. Now, two people were having two different needs and they're coming together. When two people with two different needs come together, you think they're going to think about each other's needs? They're not going to bother about each other's needs because they're so busy taking care of their own needs. Dasharath starts looking at the moon outside the palace. He is just hoping that the moon does not set today. And he is hoping that the sun does not rise today. This is like really, really hoping like that. So the previous night also was a sleepless night for Dasharath. But the previous night when he saw that white hair on his head and he got this idea, he was hoping when the sun will rise and the moon will set quickly. And today, just 24 hours later, he is hoping that the moon will never set and the sun will never rise. Life changes, right? In one day, everything changes. One day you're so happy and one day you're so miserable. And that's how the whole dynamics of life is. So, the whole night passes like this. Dasharath and Kaikeyi are loggerheads. There is no discussion happening. Somebody is saying something else. What Dasharath is saying, Kaikeyi is not hearing. What Kaikeyi is saying, Dasharath is not hearing. Here, a conversation is not happening at all. Why conversations are not happening? The conversation is not happening because both of them have separated their needs. Ideal relationships is where two people live in the same house, but more importantly, they house the same needs. But here, two people are living in the same house, but they are housing different needs in their heart. And because they have different needs in their heart, there is no connection only between the two of them. So the next day morning, early in the morning, the royal musicians and the royal bards, they enter in the room to wake up the king and queen according to the royal tradition, the stately tradition. And they come over here and start playing music. Dasharath is like so irritated. Hey, is this the time for music? Already so much music is going on in their life already. All night long there's some strange kind of music going on, and these guys are out of sequence coming and trying to play music. Music is a very interesting thing. When you are happy, it can make you more happy. But when you are miserable, that very music can irritate you to the limit, isn't it? Because everything has to be played in a particular mood, in a particular context, in a particular situation of life. So Dasharath just waves his hand, he said, "Get out from here." And all these people run away. They understand, Dasharath Maharaj is not in a good mood today. Dasharath is thinking, what meaning does royal traditions have? Here, loyal traditions have been abandoned, We're talking about royal traditions. Loyal traditions are gone, So he just says, "Get out from here." Dasharath, that morning when he woke up, he was like, becoming conscious, unconscious. He was like in that state all night long. At this point in time, Dasharath felt like a horse that has been flogged with a mace 100 times, And throughout the night, the words of Kaikeyi were like floggings on Dasharath, hitting him repeatedly. And finally, Dasharath, literally his life had gone out of his body only. Nothing left in him. And at that point in time, Dasharath, he decides to call Ram. Because he thinks, very, very feebly, he says something. He says, "Please call Ram." And then he becomes unconscious again. So now, in this whole analogy, this whole, situation, to understand this, I'm giving you a simple example. When a mind is weak, when a mind is bent, rather than weak, a bent mind controls a weak intelligence. And when a bent mind controls a weak intelligence, the innocent soul becomes very vulnerable. So here, Manthara's hunch is compared to a bent mind, a crooked mind. And Dasharath represents the weak intelligence that is not strong enough to assert himself in front of that, powerful mind. And Kaikeyi represents the person that is caught between the mind and the intelligence. Kaikeyi represents the soul that is caught between the mind and intelligence, Actually, the war is not between Manthara and Kaikeyi, or rather Kaikeyi and Dasharath. The war is between Manthara and Dasharath. So Manthara is the very, very powerful but crooked mind. And Dasharath is the weak intelligence. When your intelligence is weak, you cannot resist or cannot control the crooked mind. So now, as this was going on in the palace of Dasharath and Kaikeyi, far away in the main court, there was a full arrangement going on for the coronation ceremony. Because nobody knew what's happening, right? All night long, arrangements have been going on for the coronation ceremony. Vashishta has arranged everything. In one day, they arranged everything possible to be brought together for the coronation. Hundreds of items are needed. Hundreds of auspicious things are needed to be brought for the coronation. Vashishtas managed to arrange everything in 24 hours, literally. And all the arrangements are going on. In the meanwhile, they find that the Dasharath is not there anywhere. Because in a few hours, coronation is going to happen. The king is needed for the coronation and all the arrangements. So Vashishta tells Sumantra, go and call Dasharath, where is the king? So Sumantra goes to the palace of Dasharath Maharaj. Dasharath was not there. Automatically Sumantra goes to Kaikeyi's palace. Because he knows if Dasharath is not in his palace, he will be in Kaikeyi's palace. And Sumantra, when he enters the palace of Dasharath Maharaj, he enters directly to the innermost chamber. And when Sumantra entered, he saw the king. And he asked the king, he said, everybody is waiting for you to come. The ceremony is about to begin. Dasharath looks at him. He is very weak. Whole night he has not slept. He is like completely exhausted. He tells him, why do you flog a dead horse? Horse is already dead. Why are you hitting me again with your words? And he says, usually your words always encourage me. But today your words are hurting me. Sumantra is not able to understand why Dasharath is getting irritated with him. This is typically what happens, right? You are angry with somebody else, but you remove frustration on somebody else. Dasharath can't do anything to Kaikeyi, so he is getting angry at Sumantra over here. So Kaikeyi, she realizes that Dasharath is not going to be able to answer properly. So she answers on behalf of the king. She says, the king is so happy with Ram's coronation that all night long in excitement he has not slept only. So she says, because of lack of sleep and he is getting older, therefore he is like this. The only solution to the king's problems or his exhaustion is Ram's presence. So Kaikeyi tells Sumantra, go and get Lord Ram. So Sumantra comes out of the palace because he's got instruction to get Ram. So outside the palace, all the Brahmanas are waiting for the king to come out. And when all the Brahmanas tell Sumantra, where is the king? We're waiting for him. Sumantra goes back to ask the king, Brahmanas are waiting outside. As soon as he enters the room, the king blasts him. Dasharath blasts Sumantra. He tells him, what's wrong with you? Why don't you just follow her orders? Get Ram here right now. The kind of words and the kind of tone with which the king speaks really hurts Sumantra. And he just walks away from there. He realizes that, this is a very, very difficult place to be in. I can't be here. Sumantra felt like a ball. The Brahmanas are throwing him here, the king is throwing him there, Vashishta is throwing him here, the king is throwing... Because he feels disrespected, right? He feels hurt. Yeah. And Sumantra, at that point in time, he decides, better to go to Ram only. He's at least over there, I'll be respected. And he walks away from there. When Sumantra enters into the palace of Lord Ram, he sees a totally different scene over there. He sees Ram and Sita are seated on a beautiful swing. And they are having a beautiful conversation with each other, very heartfelt conversation. And Sita had a fan in her hand. She was lovingly fanning Ram. When he saw the two of them talking so lovingly and serving each other, taking care of each other, he felt this is like moon and the Chaitra star together. But when he saw Dasharath and Kaikeyi together, he felt like the moon and Rahu together, Different husband-wife relationship, the equation is different, Some like this, some like this, Both are there in the Ramayana. So if somebody feels that, why I am not having, the experience that Sita and Ram are having on the swing, What have you done to create such an experience in your life? What kind of investment have you made in the relationship to create such sweetness in your life? What kind of effort have you put in to understand one another in your life? And if you are experiencing Rahu and the moon constantly in your life, then you should know what effort, what things have gone into that to making that happen, isn't it? Nothing happens automatically. Nothing happens automatically. Over a period of time, relationships soar. Relationships start becoming like this. When you have not invested, when you have not put effort, when you have taken people for granted, when you have hurt people, when you have really looked at life from a very selfish angle only. And that's when you create the Rahu and Moon situation in your life. So, Sumantra, when he walks in, Ram and Sita see Sumantra, immediately they both stand up very respectfully. When Sumantra walked into Dasharath and Kaikeyi's palace, nobody stood up and nobody even cared for him. They only hurt him basically. Immediately Ram and Sita stood up very reverentially. And Sumantra, he gives Ayushman. He gives a blessing to Ram and Sita. So the interesting thing is that Sumantra plays multiple roles simultaneously. He is driver. But at the same time, he is giving Ashirwad. Ram is a king, to be king. But at the same time, he is taking blessings. And this is what Vedic relationships are all about. It's just so amazing that with a single person, you can have multiple relationships. You can have different ways of looking at the same person. The same person you can learn from. The same person you can serve. The same person you can connect with at different levels, basically. And that's what complete relationships are all about. So, Sumantra tells Ram and Sita, the king and queen Kaikeyi have summoned you. So, Ram, he immediately gets up and he pays his respects to Sumantra, and then he hears the words of Sumantra and he turns to Sita. And Ram tells Sita, surely, hear this carefully. It's very interesting what Ram tells Sita. And it's a very coded type of language. He tells her, surely father and mother have decided something wonderful for our well-being, for our benefit and for our prosperity. And Sita smiles and acknowledges him. And because she understands his mind. Now the Acharyas explain, what is Ram telling over here? Surely mother and father have decided something wonderful for our well-being. Means what? What have they decided? They decided to send him to forest. Is that good? Is that wonderful? It's not wonderful. But Ram is looking at it as wonderful. The wonderful thing is that, so Ram and Sita, look at the conversation they're having. The conversation they're having is just so amazing. Ram is preparing Sita's mind. Whatever happens, we should look at it as wonderful. Whatever mother and father does for us is for our well-being. It's a way to prepare your mind, right? All of us, we know many times in our life bad news is going to come. But when bad news comes, when your mind is prepared, it is easy to handle bad news. But when bad news comes, when your mind is not prepared, it is not easy to handle bad news. So what Ram is doing with Sita here, he's preparing her mind. And he's preparing his own mind. For what? To think that whatever mother and father are doing is for our well-being. Now after this, Ram will not have to think twice. Whatever happens, he is okay with it. Because he knows, behind the back of his mind, he knows it is for his well-being. And that's the beauty of Ram's thought. So Sita, she smiles, understanding this. And she follows Ram to the doors of the palace. And just when Ram was going to step out of the door of the palace, he turns around. He's wearing a beautiful garland around his neck. He takes out that garland and puts it on the neck of Mother Sita and smiles at her. And Sita looks at that garland and she smiles back at Ram. And she, with her eyes, she weaves an imaginary garland around Ram's neck. And she smiles at Ram. Ram smiles at her and he walks away. Sumantra is wondering what happened here. What is this? There are some coded words only husband and wife understand. Nobody else will understand. Because for so many years they're speaking same language. It's amazing. Ram and Sita have not spoken only anything here. But still they're having a conversation. So Ram, when he removes the garland and puts it around Sita's neck, he's telling Sita that when I'm going from here, I'm going as a king of Ayodhya. But when I come back, I'll be a beggar. The only thing I will be able to offer you will be these flowers and leaves. Are you okay with it? So she smiles, saying, of course I'm okay with it. And then she tells Ram, she offers an imaginary garland around Ram's neck and she tells him that for me, life is only with you. And without you, I don't have an existence. And she smiles at Ram and Ram smiles back at her, understanding that. The interesting thing is, Sumantra has observed two husband-wives interacting in the span of 15 minutes. He saw here Dasharath and Kaikeyi interacting with each other, and he saw here Ram and Sita interacting with each other. What a difference! What a massive difference, isn't it? That's life. In same Ayodhya, in the same family, such different interactions. And so people, what is communication exactly? Communication without connection is just a language. Isn't it? We all learn communication skills in schools and colleges. Without heart-to-heart connection, first of all, schools and colleges teach you communication skills. But do they teach you connection skills? They teach you how to communicate with one another using language. But do they tell you how to connect with people's hearts? Good communication cannot happen unless there is a heart-to-heart connection. And if there is a heart-to-heart connection, you don't have to communicate only. Interesting, isn't it? When there is a heart-to-heart connection, silence speaks more than words. And when there is no heart-to-heart connection, hundreds of words don't make any meaning, don't make any sense. And therefore, don't invest on developing communication skills. Invest on developing connecting skills. Because those connections will speak much, much more to you than anything else. Ram stepping out of his palace almost seemed like a lion stepping out of his cave. And outside, Lakshman was standing there and he began to follow Ram. Ever since Lakshman was a small child, he felt a compulsive duty to always be with Ram, to protect him and to serve him. It was an instinctive feeling. Nobody told him that he should do this. He just felt that I need to serve this person. I need to be with this person. I need to protect this person. It was a very natural instinct. And Lakshman started following Ram. Never in his entire life, Lakshman ever thought that I'll become better than Ram. Never in his entire life, Lakshman thought that I want to become a king. Never in his life, these thoughts came also in his mind. The only thought in his mind was, I want to serve this person. That's all. Yeah. So outside the palace, thousands of people are waiting to get the first glimpse of Lord Ram. And when Ram came out of his palace, he was looking at everyone. And every single person there in that assembly felt Ram is only looking at him. It's amazing, isn't it? No human being can do this. Only God can do this. Every single person there felt Ram is looking at only me. And Ram climbed on the chariot of Sumantra, and Lakshman climbed behind him. And Lakshman held an umbrella in one hand, and he held a chamar, whisk in other hand, finding Ram. And thousands of people started following the chariot of Ram and Lakshman. Sumantra was driving the chariot. And so Ram and Lakshman got off the chariot and they entered into the palace of Kaikeyi. And as soon as Ram, Lakshman and Sumantra entered into the palace of Kaikeyi, these thousands of people stayed outside. Almost just as if, the ocean waits for the moon to rise. Similarly, all these thousands of people, they saw Ram go in and they waited for Ram to come out. It's like the ocean waiting for the moon to rise again. Ram went in and stood in the Vinaya Mudra. And this is amazing. Whenever Ram stood in front of any senior of his father, his mother, his gurus, great sages, Ram stood in Vinaya Mudra. What is the meaning of Vinaya Mudra? Vinaya Mudra means you're standing straight, but with your head bent ahead a little bit. And with your hand over your mouth. That's called Vinaya Mudra. So you know what is the meaning of Vinaya Mudra technically? So that means you bend a little bit, that means you're humble. That's the indication that you're humble. You keep your hand in front of your mouth. What does it mean? Your mouth is shut and you are open to hearing instructions, advice, words. The problem with this is that we stand straight and our mouth open, waiting to speak. Isn't it? This just by the gesture, just by the posture, you can understand so much about a person. Isn't it? Ram was standing over here in front of his mother and father in Vinaya Mudra. And there was a stark difference in the ambience inside and outside. He felt very disturbed. Ram immediately understood something is terribly wrong in this room. Yeah, when you enter a room where some people have just fought, you immediately understand, right? Something is wrong here. The silence is too deafening, It's just the energy is so powerful. When Ram entered into the room, he realized something is very different here. Outside, people loved him and accepted him. Inside were people that he loved, but they were rejecting him. Outside were people who expected him to lead. And inside were people who expected him to follow. So his father was lying on the floor. Clothes were disheveled. His hair was in a mess. He was wearing the previous day's clothes, looking very weak. First time Ram saw him like this. You might say, we wear a previous day's clothes so many times. What is the big deal? It's a big deal when the king does that. The king in one day changes clothes 4 times. Isn't it? But when Dashrath Maharaj is wearing the previous day's clothes, and that too wrinkled way, Ram understands that something is seriously wrong here. Kaikeyi was standing a little far away from Dashrath. When he saw Kaikeyi, he could sense a combination of anger, sternness, and cruelty in her. She did not seem composed, but she looked at him. But she was looking very, intense. Dashrath, his eyes were closed. He didn't even know Ram has come. He's just chanting the name Ram, Ram, Ram. Like from his mouth, just the name Ram is coming out constantly. And for 1 second in that whole thing, Dashrath's eyes opened. And in that 1 second that Ram saw in Dashrath's eyes, he saw there was an ocean of misery. Immediately he understood his father is not in the right shape. See, your eyes reveal a lot about you, isn't it? That's why human psychology is best understood through the eyes. So a good psychologist is someone who can look at people's eyes and understand a lot of things. Ram saw Dasharath's eyes for that one split second, immediately understood, my father is really in a miserable situation. And for the first time for Dasharath, the presence of Ram is causing him disturbance. Till now, whenever Ram has come, Dasharath has been thrilled. But now he knows Ram coming here means I have to, the news that is going to be given to him is going to be painful. So Dasharath is not even able to face him. So Ram asks, is my father suffering from some bodily affliction? He says, or is it something disturbing him mentally? He says, has some inauspiciousness affected Bharat or Shatrughna or my mother? And he says, did your pride and anger make you say something harsh to him? And he says, Ram says this, look at this. He says, it is not possible to obtain happiness. However, it is my duty as a son to try to get rid of my father's misery. I may not be able to make him happy, but at least I can stop him from being miserable. So now here, look at the difference between the way Dasharath was dealing with the calamity and Ram is dealing with the calamity. Dasharath, the previous day, he said, if you have any problem, tell me, I'll solve all your problems. If you want me to do this, I'll do this. If you want me to do that, I'll do that. Dasharath, so much confidence he spoke, as if he can solve all problems. And look at how Ram is speaking. Ram is saying it is not possible to make everyone happy. But at least we can try to make someone not miserable. What a difference, isn't it? What a difference in the way you approach only, a discussion. And then, Kaikeyi, she began to speak. Kaikeyi says, a son is born only to solve a father's dilemma. Now it is time to prove your worth, O Ram. Dasharath, Kaikeyi tells Ram. And then she tells him about the two boons that Dasharath had given her. And she says, now that I have claimed to choose the two boons, he is reluctant to give them to me. Just because he is worried about your reaction. Only if you promise to do whatever he tells you, without considering any personal loss or gain, then I will tell you what is expected of you. Ram looks at Kaikeyi and he smiles. He says, at my father's command, entering into fire will seem like walking into a cool pond. Consuming poison will feel like licking honey. And he says, drowning in the sea will seem like liberation. And Ram tells her, Mother, I promise you that I'll abide by my father's desire, even if his desire comes at the cost of self-destruction. And he says, the world knows me as Eka Vachani, Eka Patni, and Eka Bana. That means I believe in one word, one wife, and one arrow. Now there's a big difference between Dasharath's overconfidence and Ram's confidence. What is the difference? The difference lies in its application. Swartha or self-interest is the main factor in Dasharath's overconfidence. Why is Dasharath showing so much overconfidence? He was only interested in making Kaikeyi happy so that she makes him happy. And why was Ram showing that confidence? His primary motive was seva or service. And that was the reason behind Ram's confidence. So Kaikeyi, she was so difficult. So here the Acharyas explained, Kaikeyi should have been ideally named as Yama. She should have been named Yama because her coldness was not anything less than the god of death. She tells Ram, both you and your father are now bound by your words. Let the world see how you will help your father fulfill his vow. And he says, he has vowed to crown Bharat as a king of Ayodhya. And he has vowed to banish you to the forest for 14 years. Ram, when he hears this, he says, Mother, let father's wish be fulfilled. Then Ram says, the only thing that disturbs me is why my father is not telling me this directly. Does he not have the confidence in my loyalty? Says, does he think that I'm attached to wealth and kingdom? It bothers me that my father has no confidence in my character. Kaikeyi answers him. Kaikeyi tells him, actually, your father is extremely ashamed at this point in time. Because he finds it difficult to speak to you directly. But as soon as you leave Ayodhya, he'll be fine. So she tells him, anyway, now that you have decided to go, why don't you just leave immediately? She tells him, leave immediately only. Don't wait so much, And he says, in fact, your father will not touch a single morsel of grain till you leave Ayodhya. Dasharath here, he is devastated. He's totally devastated. He starts crying. He says, how much misery can a man undergo? And he collapses. And Ram, he replies and he says, my dear mother, you have not understood me at all. And he says, there is no greater pleasure in my life than fulfilling my father's words. He says, you need not have involved him at all. If you had told me, I would have gone. Your words itself is enough for me. And he says, even if you had instructed me, he says, I am not a seeker of fortune. I am not going to seek sympathy from the citizens of Ayodhya for the throne. And he says, I have always wanted to be a hermit in the forest and learn from the sages. So you have made my wish true actually. Says these 14 years are not 14 years of exile, but they're actually 14 years of learning for me. And he says, I'm happy to go to the forest and learn from the sages. And then straight away he walked out of the room. Look at this. It takes a lot of substance to not be affected by bad news. It takes a lot of substance to not just not be affected by bad news, but to look at it positively. An eagle, when an eagle is sometimes attacked by a set of crows, and these crows try to peck an eagle, and the eagle is so huge and the crows are so tiny. When a set of crows try to peck an eagle, the eagle does not fight back with them. The eagle gives one slap, the crows will die. The eagle is so powerful, isn't it? The eagle simply flies higher. It flies so high that the crows can't even reach it. The eagle doesn't go and solve problems. He is too powerful. He doesn't need to solve such problems. So Ram doesn't get into the complication of the politics of Ayodhya. He just looks at the whole thing from a different level only. Kaikeyi never in her entire life should have thought that Ram can think like this. Forget Kaikeyi. Nobody in their entire life can think like this. Isn't it? He looked at the 14 years as not at all exile period. He saw this is higher education for me. Straight walked away. Isn't this amazing? Isn't this such a profound way of dealing with situations in life? All of us typically will always fall in situations in our life where somebody is trying to drag us down. Mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. You will always be in situations in your life when somebody is trying to drag you down. Whenever you come across situations in your life and someone trying to drag you down, remember Ram at this point in time. He didn't allow anyone to drag him down, but rather he used that as an opportunity to rise higher in his consciousness. Look at the problem only in a different perspective. Most problems in life are simply problems because we don't see them with the right perspective. The moment you look at your problem from a higher perspective, they are not problems at all. They appear as a totally different thing, isn't it? That's what Ramayana is all about. Ramayana is all about seeing everyday situations in life from a higher perspective. And that's why people are so inspired by the personality of Ram. That's why people are so amazed by the personality of Ram, because he didn't allow problems to bog him down. The reason people are not inspired by us is because we don't even need problems to bog us down. We're already down. And when problems come, we go underground, literally. But look at Ram. This is an ascending way of looking at problems in our life. So no matter what problem you come across in your life, there will always be a higher perspective looking at the problem. And if you're not able to see it, it doesn't mean the higher perspective doesn't exist. It simply means you do not have the capacity to see a higher perspective. And if you don't have the capacity to see things from a higher perspective, ask someone. And they will help you see things from a higher perspective. And that's good enough. Right? So when Ram walked out of the palace, Sumantra couldn't believe what just happened. He was like zapped, totally shocked. And he followed Ram out silently. Now, Kaikeyi, she didn't even expect it to be so easy. Imagine Kaikeyi's situation. See, when you are looking for a good fight and the fight doesn't happen, how do you feel? All the wives should answer this. When you expect a good fight and somebody surrenders, it feels, that's it. There's a fun in fighting, isn't it? So Kaikeyi didn't know how to handle it only. Because she expected some big drama to happen, some big, fight to happen, something big to happen. Nothing happened. Ram just walked out, accepting it. That's what makes a person think again. Whenever someone tries to fight with you, tries to pull you down, and you do not hit back, that's what makes a person think again. Normally, human beings, the tendency is to hit back. The tendency is to defend. The tendency is to somehow attack and this and that. But people like Ram, they come from a different, mindset. They come from a different world, And for them, the way they look at life is so different. So that's how, Kaikeyi was bewildered. Anyway, so Kaikeyi was dealing with it internally. And as Ram stepped out of the palace, now, Ram was actually feeling very light at this point in time. Why? Ram almost felt like a big burden is lifted off his heart. What is the big burden that is being lifted off? The responsibility of being a king, isn't it? He was feeling light. He was feeling liberated. He was feeling that, I have so many other things that I can explore now in life. What actually burdens one is self-imposed expectations. When Ram was to be the king, he didn't take up the kingdom as a burden of responsibility or anything like that. He just took it up happily as a burden of love. And when he was told that he can't be the king, he was still happy. The problem is, with us, when we are told you have to be the king, we become very happy because we are expecting that. And when we are told you are not becoming the king, we become very miserable because we are not expecting that. But for Ram, he never expected this also, he never expected this also. For him, it didn't matter only. Sukha dukkha samaya kritva labha labha jaya jayo. Krishna says in the Gita, the most amazing thing about the Ramayana and the Gita is that the Ramayana is the best commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. Every single verse in the Bhagavad Gita is explained through a story in the Ramayana. 700 verses, purports in Ramayana. Someday I will be writing a book on understanding Gita through Ramayana. Every single verse, literally. And that's a fact. Look at this verse. Sukha dukkha samaya kritva. This is Krishna's verse in the Gita. And look at Ram living by it. Yesterday we saw that Ram was being coronated as the king of Ayodhya. No change in his expressions. No excitement. And today he's being told to become a beggar, live in the forest. No change in expressions. Absolutely same. Isn't it? This is equanimity. When Ram steps out, Sumantra follows Ram along with him. And then Lakshman is standing over there. Lakshman is super angry. He's like boiling in anger. He takes out his sword. He wants to go and kill Kaikeyi and Dasharath over there. And Ram is coming out of the palace, out of the room. And when Ram comes out of the room, Lakshman is wanting to talk to Ram. He wants to have the one word with Ram. Maar donge jaake. Yeah. He's going to kill them. He just needs one signal of Ram. Yeah. Not even words. Ram has to just give him one signal. That's all. Lakshman would have wiped out the whole of Ayodhya. Yeah. What you know what Ram does? Ram does not even look at him. He just walks away like that. As if he doesn't exist only. Lakshman is bewildered. Though he doesn't know how to react only. He has so much anger. But what does he do with the anger? The worst place to confront an angry person is in front of people. And the worst time to confront an angry person is when he's angry. When someone is angry, the best thing you can do is walk out. Don't have discussions. Do not, because in that heat of anger, the words that come out, the actions that come out, the consciousness that exists, it is not normal. It is not logical. It is not reasonable. And therefore, when Ram walked out, Lakshman was like a boiling volcano. And Ram was like a sudden wave of an ocean. The whole volcano kind of fizzles out, And Lakshman doesn't know what to do. He just quietly walks behind Ram. So now, seeing that Ram had left and Lakshman was walking behind him, Lakshman ran behind, he put his sword inside, he picked up the umbrella and the whisk and ran behind with the umbrella. Ram said, what is this, That royal umbrella is for the king, right? And the chamar is for the king. Ram tells him, keep this down. And then Lakshman, he holds down the umbrella and the whisk. And he walks behind Ram. Now Lakshman understands that Ram is not going to become the king. Sumantra understands that Ram is not going to become the king. But the thousands of people down there, they have no idea what happened inside. They are all waiting, to cheer Ram, Jai Shri Ram. They're all like excited about Ram becoming the king. And then Ram comes out and stands on the outside the palace. Thousands of people assembled down there. And Ram is standing on a very high platform. And from top, Ram is looking below at the thousands of people. And the thousands of people are looking at Ram on top. And then Lakshman comes and stands on one side. Sumantra comes and stands on the other side. And both of them are crying tears. Constantly tears are flowing from their eyes. And Lakshman is, chamar and umbrella are down. And Ram is completely unaffected. He looks up at the sun. And his gaze is at the sun. The people of Ayodhya have no idea what just happened. And without any knowledge of what just happened, they're trying to figure out. They're trying to understand with their own capacities. One person says, out of ignorance, one person says, look at Ram. He looks so effulgent. When he went inside the palace, he was looking like a lotus that was closed, like a bud. But when he came out of the palace, he's looking like a fully blown lotus. Fully blown lotus. Wonder what happened inside that made him so bright and determined. Another person says, probably I can describe the beauty of Ram when he went into the palace. But I can never describe the beauty of Ram that came out of the palace. And it's amazing when you look at these two analogies that the citizens are saying. The Ram that went in as a king. And the Ram that came out as a beggar, isn't it? Technically, it should have been the other way around, right? Ideally, he should have said when Ram went in, he was a fully bloomed lotus. When he came out, he was a bud. He kind of, his face became small. But no, exactly opposite. And that's the beauty of Ram. That's the beauty of the whole thing. Now, Ram is looking at the sun. Why is he looking at the sun? Tulsidas ji in Ramcharitamanas, he goes to another level of describing this whole scene by using 3 words to describe Ram. When he describes Ram, that Sumantra went to meet, Tulsidas ji describes Ram as Kula Deepak. Kula Deepak means what? That means the lamp of the solar dynasty. He is a chirag, Vansh ka chirag. He is like the person who is going to take the dynasty ahead. Kula Deepak, he calls him. At that point in time, that analogy is fine. But there's a difference. Deepak, lamp, it gives light, right? Lamp gives light. But for a lamp to give light, it depends on 2 things. It depends on oil and it depends on a wick. Only when oil and wick are there, then it can give light. So at that point in time, Tulsidas ji calls Ram as Kula Deepak. But at a later point in time, when Ram is going to meet Kaikeyi and have the discussion with Kaikeyi, Tulsidas ji calls him as money. Why does Tulsidas ji call him as money? Because Deepak depends on external things, wick and oil. Similarly, a king depends on 2 external things, power and position, right? For him to shine. Normal kings depend on power and position to shine brightly, isn't it? So originally the Kula Deepak, what was there, doesn't fit into the second description because now Ram doesn't have a kingdom. He is no more a money. So he is no more a Kula Deepak because he doesn't have wealth, he doesn't have power, he doesn't have position. What he has, still he is shining. So the Kula Deepak is a wrong word to describe Ram now. So he calls him as money. The money, the diamond, doesn't depend on external source to shine. It has its own shine. So Ram is money. He has his own shine. He doesn't have to depend on any external sources. But when Ram comes out of the palace and is standing over there looking at the sun, Tulsidas ji calls him with the 3rd word. You know what he calls him? He calls him as son of the sun. Surya, what is that word he uses? Anyway, I forgot. So, Putra, so he calls him a Surya Putra, son of the sun, okay. So now, look at this analogy here. Why does Tulsidas ji call Ram as a son of the sun? He could have called Ram by so many names. Why this particular name of Surya Putra or the son of the sun? There's a reason. What light does sun depend on? Does somebody go and put torch to sun every day morning? Does somebody put some light bulb over there in the sun for sun to shine, The sun can shine and thousands of millions of people's lives get lighted up by the sun, isn't it? So till this point in time, Ram was fit to be called money. He was effulgent, but he was lighting up only Ayodhya. But now, like the sun, he's going to light up the whole world. The sun doesn't only belong to Ayodhya, the sun belongs to the world, isn't it? So till now, till this point in time, Ram belonged only to Ayodhya. But today, Ram belongs to the world. And therefore, calling him money doesn't make sense. A name that is much, much bigger than money has to be used to describe him. That's why he calls him sun. And that's the real reason Ram looks up at the sun. Because just like the sun travels all over the universe, right? And gives light to everyone in the universe. Similarly, now Ram understands these 14 years are time for me to go and light up the world. Ram looks at a different role only now. So Kaikeyi was trying to restrict him, to make him a beggar, to make him feel like nothing. Look at the way Ram has looked at it. Now he thinks, I am not restricted only to Ayodhya, I can give grace to the whole world. This is forward thinking. All of us in our life, when we lose one thing, remember, there is a 10 million opportunities waiting for you to explore. When you lose something, don't think you have lost everything. Only a foolish person will think I have lost everything. An intelligent person will think I have so much to explore. I have the world to explore now, isn't it? And this is what Ramayana inspires us to think. This is the way the Ramayana is opening up our minds to think so broadly and so amazingly. So, when Sumantra and Lakshman come down, and the citizens of Ayodhya, they see that these people are crying, they're very confused. And then Sumantra, after Ram gets down from the palace, Sumantra tells Ram to get on the chariot. Ram doesn't get into the chariot at all. And Ram starts walking. So all the citizens of Ayodhya start following Ram. They understand now something has gone wrong. He's not accepting the umbrella, he's not accepting the whisk, he's not even accepting the chariot. That means he's not going to accept the throne. And the citizens of Ayodhya are getting confused because Ram starts walking towards the coronation area. See, if he's not going to accept the kingship, why is he going to the coronation area? So all the citizens start following Ram to the coronation area. They have no idea what's going to happen. Sumantra and Lakshman have no idea what Ram is doing. And Ram is not talking only to anyone. He's just walking. Everyone just follows him. And they reach the coronation area. And Ram, he goes to the coronation area. So in Ram's face, there is no disappointment. There is a subtle smile. There is a very subtle smile on his face. And that smile is constantly there. It's a very subtle smile. This is just amazing. I just love this part of the Ramayana. Because that subtle smile on Ram's face shows a combination of excitement, a combination of possibilities, a combination of detachment, and a combination of someone who understands the future. Little subtle smile, And the most amazing thing over here is that on his face there is no disappointment at all. Just that little subtle smile. And the subtle smile is so confusing to everybody. Confuses everybody royally, Because it is not easy to smile in such situations of life. And if someone has managed to smile in such a situation of life, that person is something. That person is really something, Because it is not easy to smile in such situations of life. Because smile requires energy. It requires a lot of inner conviction. It requires a lot of strength. Crying is very easy. That doesn't require strength. In fact, that requires weakness. But to smile in a calamity requires a lot of substance inside. And look at this. Throughout that whole walk, Ram was smiling like that. And he goes to the coronation area. And when he reaches the coronation area, Ram, he walks around the whole area. So there's a lot of ingredients kept there. These are all holy waters. There are holy ingredients. So many holy things kept there in the coronation area. Ram walks around that coronation area 3 times with his hands folded. Very respectfully. Because he knows this is a holy ceremony, And all these ingredients are waiting for him to be accepted. Ram walks around the coronation area 3 times and he walks out. The moment Ram walks out of the coronation area, everyone in Ayodhya bursts out in tears. Now they know the coronation is definitely not happening. Everyone just bursts out in tears. And they still don't know what happened inside, but they just know for sure Ram is not going to become the king. And they just burst out in tears. And Ram alone walks out. And this time Sumantra doesn't follow. Only Lakshman follows. And Lakshman doesn't even carry the umbrella and the whisk anymore, he drops it. And only Ram and Lakshman are walking. And the scene over here is so powerful and so surcharged with energy that nobody in Ayodhya has eyes that are not filled with tears. Ram now straight away walks to the palace of Kaushalya. Mother Kaushalya has been waiting for this day for the last 25 years. And Ram knows that the one person that he has to really spend time with is Kaushalya. Because he knows that in Kaushalya's life, this is a crucial juncture. You know why? Because Kaushalya has always been a neglected wife. All her life. Dasharath has not given her much attention. And Kaikeyi, you know how she is. She's been insulting her so much, indirectly, directly. So there's a lot of pain that Kaushalya has been undergoing so many years. And she's been waiting for this day that Ram becomes the king. It's worth all the austerities, all the pressures, all the difficulties that she's gone through. And look at what has happened today. So Ram knows, I need to spend time with her, console her. So Ram, he walks to the palace of Kaushalya and he sees Mother Kaushalya. She's dressed in white silk clothes. And she has been waiting for this opportunity, but in her intelligence, in an amazing way, Kaushalya looks at the whole thing in a very different way. So, it is explained, the three queens of Dasharath Maharaj signify three different, very interesting ways of living life. Kaikeyi represents something known as Kriya Mayi. Kaikeyi is an action-oriented person. For her, action is everything. That means what? She is a go-getter, in simple words. You know, what she wants. That's all. Sumitra, the second queen of Dasharath Maharaj, she is an emotion-oriented person. For her, feelings are very important. What people do doesn't matter. What people say doesn't matter. What she feels matters a lot. For Kaikeyi, what people do matters a lot. Therefore, she found one fault in Dasharath's action, that's all. She said his intentions are bad. One wrong action for the Kaikeyi means wrong intention. Because she is an action-oriented person. She judges people based on their actions. Sumitra is an emotion-oriented person. She doesn't judge people based on their actions. She judges people based on how she feels about them. And Kaushalya, she's a thought-oriented person. It doesn't matter what people do. It doesn't matter how people behave. And it doesn't even matter how she feels. What matters to her is what she thinks. Kaikeyi, like people, are like road rollers. You've seen a road roller? Massive road rollers. They put tar on the road and they roll, right? When the road roller is rolling, anything comes on the way is flat. The road roller will go over it. Isn't it? Because the road roller doesn't care what is there in front. It only knows to roll over and go. Kaikeyi, like people, are like road rollers. If somebody comes in front of them, that's it. They are dead. You saw how Kaikeyi behaved just now? You saw her, right? She is like a road roller. She doesn't care what people feel. She doesn't care what people think. She doesn't care anything. The only thing she cares is, do I get what I want? That's all. This is not an action-oriented person. And Sumitra, interestingly, as I said, she's an emotion-oriented person, right? Sumitra is like an ant. You've seen ants? If an ant is running around, you put your finger in front of the ant, what the ant will do? It'll go around and go. You put finger there, what it'll do? Again it'll move around and go. Put finger another place, it will keep moving. As many times you put finger, it'll keep moving. That's Sumitra. If someone tries to disturb her, she will go around. If someone tries to disturb there also, she'll go again around. She doesn't allow other people's actions, bad actions, to disturb her. She is only focused on what she feels. And the most amazing thing in this entire discussion, as we're going through this whole episode, you'll find in the entire section, Ram goes and convinces everybody. He convinces Kaushalya, he convinces Sita, he convinces Vashishta, he convinces Dasharath Maharaj, he convinces everybody, the citizens of Ayodhya, hundreds of thousands of people he's convincing. The only person he doesn't even meet is Sumitra. Amazing, isn't it? Imagine if Sumitra was an overthinker. What should have done? She would have said, what is this? He met everybody except me. That means he doesn't love me. That means, something is wrong with me or something is wrong with him. Overthinkers can think in any direction, right? And we don't even need a reason like this. If somebody does something unknowingly also, we put it on them, isn't it? That's how we are. But look at Sumitra. It's a defining episode in Ayodhya. It's a defining episode in everyone's life in Ayodhya. And Ram didn't even meet her. And you know what was her state of mind? It didn't matter if Ram didn't meet her. You know what she was thinking? In her heart she was thinking, Ram loves me. That's all. That's all that matters. I know he loves me and I feel his love. That's all that matters. For her, what Ram does doesn't matter. For her, what others think doesn't matter. For her, what she thinks doesn't matter. What matters for her is what she feels. And in her heart, she was feeling that Ram loves her. That's all. What a person this is, isn't it? What an exalted person this is. And for Kaushalya is like an eagle. I was telling you about this example of eagle, right? The eagle just flies higher. When people try to disturb the eagle doesn't get disturbed. He just flies higher. And Kaushalya like people. So Dasharath ignored her. He didn't give her much. He didn't give her attention. He didn't give her love and affection. He didn't give her respect so much. But you know what Kaushalya did for the whole life? She realized that I'm not getting love and affection here. Instead of crying, instead of fighting, instead of demanding, instead of being miserable, she put her entire energy on developing a Gurukul with 10,000 students. Fully sponsored. Boarding, lodging, feeding, everything completely taken care by Kaushalya. Her entire attention was put there. Instead of crying, she just flew higher. She just looked at everything from a different perspective. For Kaushalya, it doesn't matter what people do. It doesn't matter what people say. What matters is what she thinks. How she thinks. And she thinks from a higher perspective, right? All the three queens are needed. If you want to get project done, you need Kaikeyi-like person. For business, for projects, you need Kaikeyi-like person. You need to be Kriyamayi. You have to be action-oriented. Otherwise, you won't get any results. For relationships to be successful, you need Sumitra-like mindset. When it comes to relationships, you need Sumitra. You need the Sumitra mindset to be flexible. And when it comes to dealing with calamities in both business and relationship, you need Kaushalya mindset. When you have problems in both business, in work and relationships, you need Kaushalya. So it's not that one of them is incomplete. All three of them together complete your mind, complete your mindset. And that's why Ramayana, through these three queens, is actually talking about our mindset. Now look at Ramayana. It's a totally different ballgame going on over here. We are saying three queens of Dasharath. Actually, we're talking about three different mindsets in our own life. Isn't it? And that's the beauty of scriptures like the Ramayana. There are so many layers in these scriptures that your life will go, but you will not understand all the layers. Every single day, a new layer will come out and show itself to you. And you'll be just amazed by the layers that are there in these scriptures. The discussion between Kaushalya and Ram is considered to be the most powerful discussion ever. And then after Kaushalya, Ram convinces Kaushalya, Ram is going to meet Mother Sita and discuss with her. These two women are the most important women in Ram's life. And the way he discusses with them is so profound. It's just so amazing. See, it is not easy for a man to deal with his mother and his wife. It's a complicated thing, isn't it? So, you make your wife happy, you can't make your mother happy. You make your mother happy, you can't make your wife happy. And Ram is trying to deal with both of them in a totally different way. It's just amazing how he does it. So I don't want to rush into that discussion today because I need time for that. and these two discussions are so amazing that I would want enough time to discuss these two discussions and dive deep into them. Of course, at this point in time, it is 10 minutes to 8. We just spent the last 2 hours having discussions, by the way. If you all did look at the time. so, so, my suggestion is it's 8 o'clock almost now. My suggestion is let's take a break for today. I know I'm leaving you all in a very high seat of emotion and in a high point in the story, but it's good to leave at this point so you can keep dreaming about it and wondering what happened. But let's discuss this tomorrow. Tomorrow evening, when we are at Prayag, we're going to have elaborate, long katha over there. So the only thing that we're having in Prayag is one bath in the Triveni Sangam. So as soon as we reach Prayag, we're going to have a Triveni Sangam bath and then we come back to the hotels. So typically tomorrow's Prayag journey is about a 4.5 hour bus drive. So if we leave at 8, maybe 7:38 tomorrow morning from here after breakfast, we will reach there by about 12:30 or so. We'll have the Sangam bath and come back by about 3 or so. We will be completely done, with lunch and everything. So from 5 to 8, tomorrow we'll have a 3-hour long stretch of katha practically, So we're not going anywhere. We're sitting in one place and having a long discussion in Prayag Dham. And tomorrow's discussion is going to be the most amazing discussion because we're talking about Ram leaving Ayodhya. And it is the most intense moment of the whole Ayodhya Kanda. And we're also going to be discussing the episodes that happened till the point Ram reaches Prayag. So hopefully, we'll cover the whole journey while we are in Prayag. I'm not sure, whether we'll in the lectures reach all those destinations, but between Prayag and Chitrakoot, we'll cover the rest of the journey. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.